Nomad Podcast.
Hey there, I'm Sean, and welcome to Nomad Podcast. I have a special treat for you today. So, Diego Bejarano did not originally intend to start a movement. He was frustrated with his working situation and the lack of social interaction, and decided he'd invite a few friends that he had, who all had remote jobs, down to South America to try living and working. Little did he know this experiment would morph into a company that's since become one of the premier travel programs for location-independent workers. Diego is co-founder of Wi-Fi Tribe. This is a travel program that allows you to hop in and out of groups that are roving around South America and Europe and Asia. And in this interview, Diego is going to tell us a little bit about how this program came to be, the values, who it's appropriate for, and really we're going to dig into what it means to be a mobile community of nomads. We also get into some interesting topics around intermittent fasting, Diego's rituals for how he stays productive and brings his office with him on the road. And we also get a little bonus tour of the house in Bolivia that they're currently at. You'll meet some of the folks having breakfast in Bolivia. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Here is Diego Bejarano of Wi-Fi Tribe. Nomad Podcast is supported in part by Nomad Prep, an online academy that teaches you everything you need to know to take your job on the road and crush it abroad. Enroll today at nomadprep.com/podcast and get your first 4 days of training completely free. Nomad Prep, take your job on the road and take on the world. Okay, welcome Diego to Nomad Podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Diego Bejarano, Diego, you are the founder or the co-founder of Wi-Fi Tribe, correct?
Yeah, correct. Exactly. There's also Julia Calveit, and she's from Germany.
Okay. And what is, for the people that are listening who have no idea what Wi-Fi Tribe is, what is Wi-Fi Tribe?
Sure. Good question. I think that the simplest way of explaining it is it's just an alternative way of living. And to dive a little bit deeper, we are a group of people who work remotely and who choose to travel as part of that lifestyle, and who are looking for community, right? So instead of traveling on our own, we want to have that sense of, I guess it's one of the pieces that's missing when you're traveling usually, is that continuity of friendships and community, right? So during the week, we'll typically work, and then the weekends, we go out and explore the country together, wherever we're at that moment. And Wi-Fi Tribe itself just brings people together who have this kind of lifestyle, and makes that part possible.
Yeah, there's a quote I want to read that was on your FAQ that just struck me, like it really resonated, but it says, "We believe that anyone who consciously designs their own lifestyle will be happier and more successful. Our perfect lifestyle needed to let us do three things. 1, work on something we care about. 2, travel the world. And 3, build deep and meaningful relationships along the journey." I love that because I agree with you. I think that's pretty much, you do those 3 things, you're rocking. But
That's how I should have responded.
Well, how did you come up with this? What's like the founding story of Wi-Fi Tribe? How did you guys come up with this plan?
Sure. So, it was actually never meant to really be a startup. It was literally just that, just what you read out now. Just changing a lifestyle. So I'd been trying to figure out how to set up a startup for a while. I wanted to do something in the tech space. It was always something to do with communities. That was always something that I was really excited about. And of course, if possible, a traveling element, but it was more around building apps and growing communities online. And after sort of 3 years of that really not working out, and the whole time I was in that mindset of like, if I work really hard today, then tomorrow is going to be better, right? So constantly in that sense, living for tomorrow, to the point where like I stopped really meeting friends, stopped just about doing anything, right? It was literally all just head down working. I didn't even really do any networking. So even on that front, in terms of my career, like unless something was to kick off, I would have just massively slowed down. So the last time one of those failed, I just said, all right, well, like classic thing you say to yourself, like, it's all right. I learned something from it. It's okay. I know how not to do it. But then there was like another part of me that was just saying, there's got to be a better way. I've just wasted, or not wasted, but I've used up 3 years, right? 3 years where I've got a lot of energy, and I could have done other things. There's just got to be a different way of doing this, right? So I I guess I just decided whatever I was going to do next was going to be first figuring out the lifestyle element, changing the way that I wanted to be living, and then putting work back into that. So fitting a project back into that. So the first step was just to go freelance, and I started to do marketing. So I did that for a few months. And while I was still sort of closing up the last thing, I already wanted to head over to Bolivia because I'm half German Bolivian. And we have a house over here. So I was just going to invite over a few friends and see if they wanted to do something similar, of just like, kind of like working a bit. I could show them the country, just doing their own thing, but then traveling together. So yeah, and shortly before kicking all of that off, I met an old friend, Julia Kalveit from, she's German. I met her at a conference way before, like 3-4 years ago. And she'd been working remotely from South Africa for a few months, almost 2 years, I think, actually. And she was like, "Oh, well, this is a cool idea. Let's see if we can make it. If there's a possibility to do it in Bolivia, and if enough people join." And so I sent out an email to 100 friends. Enough of them said, "Yeah, sure, let's try it out." And so then about 3 weeks before we headed to Bolivia, we set up a quick website on Squarespace, and a really crappy little website on Squarespace, and then put it out to a bunch of Nomad groups. And our first chapter, we didn't even call it that back then, was Bolivia, and that one was just free. It was literally just like, "Hey, come join us." And even then, like there were people that joined, but it really wasn't that many. So I was like, "This is for free, and there's not that many people joining. I don't know about this, but hey, it's for lifestyle, right? So it's okay." And so we got there, and then we said, "Okay, well, maybe there is a sustainable way to do this. Maybe we could do it long term. We got to try it out." So our very next chapter was going to be Costa Rica, and we were going to start promoting it. We'd seen that Facebook ads worked really well in the space. So we gave that a try, and that's literally what in the previous maybe 3 to 4 months, as I went into freelance marketing, what I started learning, right? So I think that it definitely was a huge piece of making this work. So yeah, we did some Facebook ads. They brought people in. That was the first time that we charged as well. Oh, and it ended up being Nicaragua because we randomly found a really nice house there instead of in Costa Rica. And so that was our first, I guess, official chapter. And since then, it just, chapter by chapter, we said, "Okay, well, what about this place? What about that place?" And it was kind of like decided sort of at the beginning of the next location that we were at. So very spontaneous, very just like organic, right?
So when you're adding new cities, what factors determine where you guys go next, or what cities you add to the itinerary?
Sure. Initially, it was like, "Oh, where should we go?" And now it's become a lot more organized in that sense that we will ask people who apply where they would like to go. And obviously it also comes up in the discussion, but that's where we have most of like the data, so to speak. And then we can look through all that and see, okay, wow, lots of people want to try this out, right? And it's got us to the point where we've even added places like Iceland for next year, and a few more places in Africa. So there are a few that are experimental, even if we don't have that much to like demand or that many people saying, "I'd really like to go there." But the majority are based on what people want to do.
And you guys have multiple groups concurrently circulating around the world, right? How many different tribes, or do you call them different tribes, or is it one tribe and different groups?
Everyone calls it different things. So like all the members call each chapter a tribe. I'm trying to change that, but it's not working, so I'm gonna have to adapt. I try to call them expeditions, but yeah. Anyway, pedantics. We've got 3 different ones going on at the same time, and one's currently in South America, one in Europe, and one in Asia. And by the end of the year, we're looking at sort of having Africa, Europe, Asia, and South America running at the same time. And then into the next year, we want to start splitting up South and Central America so that there are essentially five like continents areas that people can travel to at any point in time.
Cool. And okay, so I want to clarify, because in terms of the space and how you guys position yourselves in it, because I know that there's quite a few different options now. I think of it like this. I think of it like a continuum where on one hand you have the static like co-living spaces, things like, you know, Rome and Selena and Outside and those type operations. And then like I did Remote Year, which is like this, you know, you're probably familiar with it, but it's like a sequential, you sign up for this thing and you're committed for a year and you travel as a group. And it seems to me somewhere in between, you guys are, I almost lump you in with like Unsettled, in that it's like you can go in and out. You're not committed to stick with one group for the year, but you can kind of bounce around. You could go to Europe or Asia at your own leisure, wherever you want to go. Is that kind of an accurate understanding, or how do you see the space?
Yeah, I think that's quite right. But I would almost say, like, so you've got that continuum, that line, and I would say there's a line that goes in parallel, because the first thing that we focus on is the community piece. So that's always been our main priority, right? So any decisions that we've made, any changes, any improvements have always been to figure out how do we get to the point where people connect faster, people are more together, community builds faster, people see each other more and more, and again over the different chapters, right? And with kind of attached to that, the other part is we're working on setting up an alternative lifestyle, right? So again, we don't call ourselves a retreat or a program, right? I would say that maybe Unsettled is more on the retreat side, because it's very it's very structured. You'll have a lot of like structured activities and come together for this, come together for that, and it's obviously the price point is also a little bit higher because there is a lot more facilitation, right? So I'm guessing what you'll get in Unsettled is that a lot of people, they'll come and they'll have a great experience, and they might come again maybe once or twice a year, or maybe it might be every second year or so. Whereas what we were trying to figure out is how can people choose this as a different lifestyle, right? And the measurement for that would be that people come back again and again and again several times a year, right? So our average currently is about 3.5 chapters per person per year. That's within the first year, and then you'll have people coming back over years and years, right? Well, in our case, the 2 years that we've been running. But there are people that are doing it the entire year, people that are doing 6 chapters. But again, it's like you say, you can pick and choose, kind of like a candy shop kind of thing. You can come in and out whenever you want to. But our focus is on figuring out how can we get that community really, really tight, right? So we'll do less of the facilitation, and more of the experience that's on the ground comes from the community itself, right? A lot of it is self-organized, self-managed. People choose what they want to do on the weekends. They get together, they organize that, then somebody else does something else. Some people will get people to come out to a restaurant. Right now here in Bolivia, as an example, we've got someone who's leading workouts. Again, and it's not that we said, hey, do you want to lead the workouts? It literally just, the person just got up and said, I want to do these workouts. Who wants to join? There's someone meditating. We're doing like volleyball every 2 times a day or so. There's people getting us out to go to restaurants, and all the different weekend activities are organized by everyone here.
Yeah.
Right? So just to give you like an idea of where it's kind of like a parallel line of a different continuum.
Got it. Yeah. So more self-organized stuff. I mean, I noticed like in our Remote Year group, I think we were different in that right off the bat, we had a lot of that going on. People just being really generous with their time and like organizing things internally to the group, not expecting for someone to make this event for us. We just made it happen. So that's cool. That you guys, that is like, it sounds like that's your MO, is like.
That's the essence. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So for someone who's listening, who's evaluating all these options, and they're looking at the Selenas and the Romes and the Outsides and all these other things that they could do, what makes them an ideal fit for you, and what makes you an ideal fit for them? Like what type of people do really well in Wi-Fi trad?
Perfect. Cool. So that's a good idea. I could start with explaining that, and then maybe I'll go into explaining sort of the different ones that I know of out there, and what's sort of fundamentally different, maybe the different like spaces that are being tackled. So I think the people who do the best at Wi-Fi Tribe are those who want to, who are very keen about being a part of that community, right? So we found that people who don't do well, for example, are those who are like, oh, I want the travel to be taken care of, or I want this to be taken care of. I want to have, reliable internet and be there, and then I can do my thing, right? That it's really not for them, that kind of experience. It's not that those things aren't there, like those logistical things need to be there, but the experience is about something different, and it really is about the people getting together. we've seen people just like the experience they have out of it is entirely because of the people, right? Like anyone can go to a country, anyone can figure that part out. But yeah, you have to have a crazy love for people and enjoy being part of the community. It's not that it's just for extroverted people. We actually have a good mix of introverts and extroverts. But it's just you got to want to be around people, get to know people, experience people, right? That's the point here. Yeah. And then to give you an idea maybe of the different spaces. So maybe starting with Selena. So Selena is it's been a hostel I think for 9 years, and they've recently decided to add co-working spaces to their places, right? So they really come from that hostel kind of setup, and they have huge places. I think some that have something like 200 spots or 300 like beds, right? So what you're going to get there is the infrastructure for co-working, the infrastructure for a lot of things. Selena is very much like a bubble within that city. It's very comfortable, but you'll probably struggle finding community in that sense. You'll find a lot of people, but the tight knitness that's probably not their main focus. I think people who get a lot out of that are those who come into Selena maybe with a few friends, and then use the facilities, everything that's there again, because that's developed really well, to make their own experience, right? Or people who are really like sort of in that dating mode, they'll just meet a lot of people there as well, right? So that's one side, which is sort of the perspective from the hostel part, and then moving over to I guess another interesting one would be to talk about would be Rome. So Rome is kind of like sort of the opposite end of that. It's I would say it's a boutique hotel that has co-working attached to it. Very, very high end, beautiful places. Every time I've seen them, really nice. And then of course the price is accordingly as well. But you really do you get a hugely valuable service for it, right? And I've also heard that recently the community has become stronger and stronger within Rome. Also probably because of people going from one place to the next. Right. So to give you an idea, there's a place in Miami, for example, where I think it's about $2,000 a month, and they also have like shorter term stays. And then there's a place in San Francisco where I think it's around $4,500 or $5,000 a month. Right. So it adapts according to the city. Right. And they're very much sort of in these bigger cities. Right. So it's not like a traveling type of community. Let's see what else is there out there. Then there's so programs like, I guess, and you'll know all about this, programs like Remote Year, and before there was WeRoam as well. I think the focus on that is probably many of those people have just got into, or several of those people at least have just got into traveling, and it's a chance for them to explore that whole world. But it's also it's like a 1 year long retreat. I know recently they've changed it to I think 3 or 4 months as well as an option, right?
Yeah, they just launched some 4-month programs.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So again, there you'll be with the same through the entire year, which I also think brings people together. Just the fact that you're with people for a long period of time. But there you have flights organized, right? So that's a little bit more facilitated, more organized, a little bit less that you have to do yourself, right? And Unsettled, I would say, is again more of a retreat kind of setup. Also quite high end. Also, when you look at the pricing, and the group sizes, I think are smaller than your Remote Year. Yeah, so maybe that gives you an idea of the different things sort of in the space.
Yeah, no, that's a great overview. Group size wise, how big is Wi-Fi Tribe? How big are the chapters?
Yeah, so we limit it to 25. That's the absolute max. We used to do something in the past where we ran like these experiences for young entrepreneurs, and we did exactly the same thing 2 years in a row. One time it was I think 23, 24 people, and the other time with just over 40 people, right? And we thought, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. It's even more people. It's going to be awesome, right? And then we got to it, and we just didn't understand why it didn't feel the same. It was just not so connected, right? And later we realized it was there must have been a certain size at which people just naturally stuck together. And at some point that starts to flake out, and you get the exact opposite, right? A group that is really big can end up feeling very small because it becomes kind of cliquey, and you're like, oh, there's 2 people here, 3 people there, 4 people there, right? So yeah, we've got that's our limit. And even at 25, I feel like, okay, people have to put more effort in to be together. Um, my favorite group size is probably 18, 20, something like that. I feel like that's where there's a lot of people. You can really meet a lot of people, but you get to know everyone in a meaningful way, and people just stick together and do stuff together.
Yeah, we started with 72 in our remote year group, which is a pretty good sized group. And it boiled down. We ended with 50, but I tend to agree with you that I know they're doing smaller groups now, at least with remote year, and that it seems like the attrition is a lot lower and that people are just much more cohesive when you start out with a smaller group.
That's the thing. It's building that cohesion is super important.
For sure. Okay, well, so here's a question. Like, so the whole real goal of this podcast, there's two goals. It's really to share stories, like founder stories like yourself, that help current digital nomads be better at what they do. So I'm going to ask you maybe a little bit about like what you've seen in terms of a pattern or design patterns that work for people. But the other thing is like, this is also intended to help folks who are watching this, who want to be, they're the aspiring digital nomad that want to take their job on the road, but aren't sure if they can do it. And so I guess two questions here for you. First, do you have any first timers? Like, is this a good gateway drug for someone who's never done nomadic travel to be able to hop in and do it? Well, and I'll just let you answer that one first.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think it's a good mix of both. I wish I knew the percentage. Just out of my gut feeling, it must be somewhere around 40, 60, something like that. It sounds about right.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And then, so for the more seasoned travelers, like what are there things you notice? Like what makes people successful? Like where do people go off the rails? Who does this not work for? And who are the people that you've seen just from all your experience where it does work particularly well for?
Okay. So I think the people for whom it maybe doesn't work so well are people who they might not have done something like co-living before, or they might have a very different concept of it. It probably depends on, I guess you very much define your expectations based on the closest thing that you can compare it to, right? And in the case of, say, for example, you've been traveling in hotels mostly for your recent travels. That's your expectations, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I want this kind of lifestyle. It's very different, right? Co-living is with people. You're in the same place. You're sharing things. You're getting a lot closer. That's fundamentally different from the way that hotels are set up. So that's one of those parts. I think another part that makes it difficult for some people, or where you see people really succeed if they have experience in it, is how they figure out their work part, right? So if you say, for people who are location dependent, they have anchors, right? One of them is get in the car, drive to work, get to your desk, sit down, maybe drink your coffee, work, right? All of that is an anchor, and it anchors you to supposedly productivity. So you have to create your anchors yourself when you're on the road, and decide what is it, like, be conscious about it. What is it that's going to be my office, right? If I'm constantly moving, just to give you an example, I use I've got these big noise canceling headphones. In the beginning, I had to put them on, turn on the noise canceling, put on like the perfect music, the perfect background noise. I feel like there's rain going on in the background, and that's what I thought would be my perfect space. So as I kept on doing that, I conditioned myself to become productive doing that, right? Because it was like, every time I do that, I will start working productively. By now, I can literally just put them on and instantly just weirdly feel comfortable at working, right? So it's almost like those headphones are my office. And it's people who can find those kind of anchors that are able to stay more focused and more productive. People who start new will usually, they'll be figuring those things out as they go along, but they also ask other people, and that helps them too.
Yeah, well, and that's actually a really interesting thing that you bring up with the anchors. Like to me, this was a lot of figuring out how to thrive amongst chaos, because it is like you're always in a changing environment and changing people and different workspaces, yada yada. But to the people who can figure that out, I think it produces like a more valuable employee, frankly. Like you develop a resilience that I don't know how else you learn that, and it means you can kind of parachute in at any situation and be productive, which is pretty incredible.
I think that's a really good way to put it. People who are like seasoned as remote workers, whether they're working from home or anywhere else. But I guess you're right. The more you change things, the better. Are they're able to take? I think they're able to take control over their productivity in a different way. Um, and there's more probably a stronger sense of like autonomy and and then being a manager of one, as like a self manager. So I would recommend to companies, whether they're looking for someone to be location dependent or not, to consider people who have a certain number of years working as freelancers or for themselves.
What other types of beneficial qualities do you think this style of working travel engenders? So resilience being one of them, but what else? Is there anything else you can think of?
Yeah, 2 years ago, I always liked to be a social person, and thought that was part of my identity. About 2 years ago, I'd been away from people in a sense for so long. After 2 years of doing this, I feel so incredibly comfortable around just about anyone. So that's an obvious one. It's just that you're around people a lot, right? And something like this, it's not just the fact that you're co-working. Like, yeah, you can go to a co-working space, but I always felt like co-working spaces didn't quite do it for me, because you go in, you're there for work. When you're done with work, you're like, I'm done with work. I need to go somewhere, right? And that doesn't bring you together with all the other coworkers. So what I think is valuable in settings like these is that, like, you're done with work, you're like, oh, let's go do a sport, play volleyball, work out, go on this trip, camping, quad biking together, right? And that kind of stuff brings you together. So that's, I think, what gave me back that social element that I was missing, and kind of gave me like social training, like whatever goes with that. So yeah, I think the resilience, the social part, being a self manager, right? That's like that's definitely something that you learn along the way, and picking up bits and pieces of growth along the way, right? There's so many people here, and that you meet along the way that are from all these different backgrounds. So obviously different professional background, B, also different nationalities. So it's a very diverse group. So everyone comes in with their different quirks and cultures, and I always find that the more of a character someone is, the more exciting the entire experience becomes for everyone.
Yeah.
Because you can just, like, if you can say, oh, that's such a John thing to do, right? Then you're you have a character. So you learn like a bit of that cultural piece, but also each of those people, they have their different routines. They have things that they do incredibly well, of course, also things that we don't do so well, but everyone has things that they've done for a long time and understood really well. And because it's also people that are kind of already living this experimental lifestyle, they tend to be people who are more experimental with their own lives, right? So like not like Tim Ferriss, but they're willing to experiment more with different things. And I've picked up so many different, whether it's habits, even diets. Like I'm on the fasting, the intermittent fasting thing now for 8 months, since someone from the tribe introduced it to me. Yeah, and just mindsets, mentalities, all of these different things that you can play around with and grow from. Very different to hear it from someone than to just read it online, especially because you don't even get exposed to it unless you're looking for it.
Nice. Yeah. So exposure to just a really diverse set of all that stuff you just named. That's awesome. Cool.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk for the people that are listening that want to do this. Can you take us through, not necessarily pricing, because I know that can change, but like your pricing model? How does it work? I saw it was explained on the website, but it wasn't like, I got to be honest, it was not entirely clear at first glance. So maybe you can kind of like talk us through how it works.
Well, that's a good bit of feedback. So time to change things. No, and we know that it's been a little bit confusing. So we got to figure that part out, see how we can make it really simple. But yeah, the basic thing behind it is that people can join. So once someone's been accepted as a member, they can join anywhere, right? There's no need to sort of go through another interview part. There's a joining fee of $300. And then once people are part of the community, then and they want to join for the first time, then we'll ask them, okay, well, how many chapters do you want to do per year, right? There's an option to do pay as you go, right? Where you just do, okay, one chapter here, one chapter there, right? But for people who know that they want to do several chapters within that space of time, it's possible to get lower prices, right? So the more chapters people do, the lower the prices are. Just that for people who say, for example, I want to do 3 chapters, the commitment that we need on that end to be able to give those lower prices is a $300, and this is separate from the first part, $300 deposit for each of those chapters, right? So someone says 3 chapters, so that'll be 300 times 3, so we got 900 that we'll hold on to in that moment. And then as and when someone says, ooh, I want to join in Peru now, okay, I want to join in South Africa, then we'll start applying each of those $300 deposits to it, that books it. And then the remainder is just paid shortly before people get there.
Cool. All right. So it is. So it's like it's a $300. Is that a lifetime membership fee or is that a yearly?
Yeah, we won't. It's just lifetime. So it's just for joining. Exactly.
Got it. And then just basically a la carte, pay as you go, or if you want to get a bulk discount, then you can commit in advance. And awesome. All
exactly. Right. Exactly. And there are, I forgot to say this, there are private and shared rooms. So yeah, people have the option to jump between that. It was one of the reasons that we decided to do that is so there's a huge salary discrepancy between Canada and the US and the rest of the world. And I'm even talking about like compare US salaries to UK salaries, and it's really weirdly different. So we wanted to figure out a way that more international people could access this, right? So just personal background, I'm German, Bolivian. But I spent some time living in the States as well. So I know what it's like on the European side, and something that for people from the US might be, like their rent or sometimes even cheaper than their rent if they're in a major city is a, more of a luxury for people in Europe, right? And now think about people in Latin America or in Asia, where salaries are lower, right? So this was an option for us to keep the international factor high by offering something that allows like different prices for different room options.
Yeah, well, I applaud you for trying to lower the barrier because I think that, like you just said, the diversity is what really makes this interesting and stronger. And so if you charge it and it's all just kind of on the high end, you're going to self-select and you're going to get only certain people. So I think that's awesome that you guys really try to make it, options available for those people that have lesser salary. That's dope. Cool. All right.
It makes a difference. I mean, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, so you guys are hiring right now. I wanted to mention this just in case anyone's listening. I know I connected you with my friend Jordan, but you guys are hiring for a head of growth marketing. Can you talk a bit about that position in case there's someone who this is like the perfect fit for who's listening right now?
Sure. Sweet. That's awesome, actually. So I've been doing marketing for a while, startup marketing. I've been doing all the marketing for Wi-Fi Tribe. The point here of the person coming in is they got to kick my ass. They got to absolutely show me up and do it way better than me. It's part of the philosophy that we have for the team in general. It's that we should feel kind of nervous working with each other because everyone's so good at what they do. So yeah, that's sort of like a general overview for that position. Specifically, I guess the person would need to have a broad range of skills across the different marketing fields, good strategic mind. So really be that head of marketing, and ideally one skill that they're very focused on, very good at, right? So that's like in marketing they call it the classic like the T-shape skill, where you got the top of the T is that broad range of like, I know all of these different marketing technologies and how to use them, and then the stick of the T is is that one specific skill where you go really deep and that field very. That'll be that.
Cool. All right. So if you're listening and you have a T-shaped marketing skill set, get in touch with Diego. That position's on your website, right? If they go to the careers page.
Yeah, well, actually, it's on AngelList. We should start that up on the website too, but currently it's on AngelList. Yeah.
Okay, so look up Wi-Fi Tribe on AngelList if you're listening and you're interested in that position. Just a couple more questions here. Like anything you can share in terms of like where you see this going? Are you guys making any kind of structural changes or adding new cities or anything that you're able or willing to share of how the program is changing?
Yeah, sure. I could, let me see if I can give you some exact details on that. See if I have it here in front of me. If not, I'll just give you a quick overview. So basically, as for the quick overview, we are next year for the first time we're starting to do permanent locations or semi-permanent locations, and we'll be starting in Medellin. And then there'll be 3 other places as well. It's going to be Bali, Lisbon, and South Africa. And in the first year, so in the next year, we're going to be doing them for about half of the year, giving people the option to join and then just to stay on if they want to for another few months after that. And then I'm just trying to bring up that itinerary that we have. And then the other chapters that we'll be adding to it will be a few more in Africa. So we've currently only done South Africa, so there'll be a few more there. We're adding Oman to the mix. I used to live there. It's a beautiful place. There's Iceland is coming in, so there are a few more places in Europe. And then, as I was mentioning before, we're going to split South America and Central America so that there's sort of that option of being on the beach in Central America, or like exploring that part of the world, or jumping over to South America at any point in between. All in all, I think we're doing over 50 chapters next year, and I think there are 35 to 40 different cities that we'll be in. So it's quite a mix to choose from.
Wow.
But yeah, structurally in the future, we want to figure out how to make this that alternative lifestyle that people can just plug themselves into at any point, right? And that really requires us to have permanent places.
And so by permanent, you mean someone could do the Wi-Fi tribe and just decide to stay in Lisbon. Like if you have a co-working space here in Lisbon, then they could just stay.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea would be that, so in a similar way to, I guess, other companies that already have that start. So some companies started that way right away from the beginning, and other companies started as programs. I don't know. I'm guessing Remote Year probably wants to start moving in that direction too. I imagine most of the companies would. In our case, we just want to figure out how can we create this network of houses around the world that are ready for community, where community is already there and active, and you can just come in, plug yourself in, and be there as long as you want, and then you say, oh, now I'd really like to live in this place, right? Just have the full freedom to be able to make that choice of moving from one place to the other. So it would essentially be two different things, where on one side we have like this program where people sort of travel continuously through the chapters that we have, and on the other side it would be these permanent places. The differences would be more subtle, but there would be some differences. So the locations would probably have smaller groups, probably between 10 and 15. We've also found that that's worked really well, especially for longer term groups as well, or just longer term living. And I'm guessing that the focus will be slightly less on the adventure and a little bit more on living in that place and experiencing that place, right? So people won't be as stressed about like doing something every weekend and being super active as we are when we stay in your place for just a month. But yeah, those kind of differences. But the point is, community always has to be there, and it has to feel like home.
Cool. And I just want to clarify. So you guys all live under the same roof, right? That's kind of a unique feature of this program.
Ideally, it's not entirely possible, but togetherness and community is our goal. So we try to optimize for that. I can maybe show you the house in a second, but here we have one main house where we do we work together. We're here for most of the time together. And Bolivia's a kind of weird place. It's one of the only places that's kind of more like a retreat, because there's an option for meals cooked 3 times a day, and we're just surrounded by mountains. So it's a bit different. But out of the city, usually we're right in the middle of the city. So when we can, we'll have one house for everyone. The second best option is having a few houses right next to each other, or close to each other, like here in Bolivia. Then the next best option is apartments in one building in a city, because again, in cities it's very rare to get houses. And then the other option is apartments that are within 5 to 10 minutes walking distance, again, so that we're close. But it's what's available in the different places.
Got it. But optimized for community, and then
optimized for close. Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Very cool. Absolutely. All right. Well, you had mentioned, and I would love, if you don't mind in a minute, to show us just the house. But you mentioned Tim Ferriss. So I'm going to get kind of Tim Ferriss on you here for a second and ask some very tactical questions. Any resources you read regularly or podcasts you listen to on the regular?
I'm a big fan of audiobooks. I'm a slow reader, and I've put myself to sleep a few times reading. So I'll try to get the different books in audio version, and then you can like speed them up 2 times, and just because a lot of books take a while to get going, assimilate a lot of information. First, for people doing startups, one of my favorites is Tony Hsieh's Delivering Happiness. It just focuses on building everything based on values, right? Based on core values in your company. In our case, we can do that both with our company, so the team, and with the community, right? Because they're essentially two same things, but at the same time different things. That's been hugely inspirational and valuable to me. Another one is rework. Rework is just fantastic for people doing startups because it's condensed into just this super fantastic advice in a very short space of time.
Yeah, we actually bought that. I had a startup, and we bought one of the first sets of copies of Rework. We bought like 10 copies and gave it to every member of our startup because same thing, like Jason Fried, those guys they nail it. They know exactly what
they're amazing. No, that was incredible. And like even the fact that they tell, one of the things that they tell you is strip it down to the most basic things and just focus on those. And then they tell you, we stripped this book down by like, I don't know, 200% or something like that. It was crazy. They just totally reduced it. Yeah, it's a really, really cool book. Let's see. And then there's just other like self-development books, leadership books. Again, they're sort of, I've listened to a lot of them recently, so I don't have all the names in my head. Podcasts, not so much anymore because I spend more time with the books, but yeah, that's most of it. And then I'm just absorbing a lot from the people here. So usually every month I'll have one new habit, one new thing I'm trying. This month I've decided to do cold showers, which has been painful at first, but I think it's made a difference. Yeah, just a certain morning routine of like getting into movement instantly, getting light instantly. This is also from an audiobook that I listened to. They mentioned the same thing as well. Get hydrated instantly. And then just having, again, those are anchors, right? It's just like, if you do this, then the next thing I have to do is this. Yep, there's no choice. Then I have to do that. Yep, also no choice, right? So you're just setting your morning up for just for success, right? Just for like automation almost.
Yeah. The cold showers. I just came from Barcelona where, and for whatever reason, like just we had the most unreliable hot water, and so I said, I'm just going to use this as an excuse to like try the cold showers. And I'm still doing it actually, so it works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What about the intermittent?
And I mean, people.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, I was just going to add for the cold showers, like people, just to give some context maybe to people. There's two like bigger sides of it. On one side, people say it's healthy, and on the other side, people say it wakes you up and gets you to do hard things, right? So for both of people might do it for different reasons, or both of them. From a health perspective, it's meant to give your immune system a bit of a kick. And at first, you got to start kind of easy. Otherwise, like you can actually tip it over and actually get a little bit sick at first. But if you continue doing it, that it just keeps it in gear. And I've certainly felt that. I've certainly felt healthier here since doing that. And the other side is like it is kind of a hard thing, uncomfortable thing to do, which makes like difficult emails a little bit easier to write. Right, intermittent fasting.
Yeah. Intermittent fasting.
Okay. What would you like to know about it specifically, or sort of my approach to it?
Well, just so I did the paleo diet for 2 years, and it's a tough thing to keep up with on the road. And I've looked at intermittent fasting because I know, again, Tim Ferriss, he's big on that. But what beneficial effects have you seen from it?
Sure. Seen, I would say probably only one. Way more focus. When I'm actually doing the fast, two. When I'm doing the fast, I feel a lot more focused during that day. They say that that's meant to be one of the benefits. So perfect. Looks like it's working. And I think biologically speaking, it's also because when your body starts to go into that fast mode, biologically it's telling you, all right, get your shit together. You have to go hunt for some food, or get some berries. So it probably gives you a certain amount of just focus. The other one is weight control. So it's not that I've ever really struggled with that part, but now I can literally eat absolutely anything. And I will notice a slight difference from beginning of the week to end of the week, because I do it once a week, 24 to 34 hours, depending on how I feel. And yeah, absolutely. It keeps me wherever I want to be. So it just makes it so much easier. And then of course you also don't have to worry about food that day. You just get a few more hours in your day from that. I think if it is healthy, and so many people agree that it is, It's the easiest thing that you can do for your health, right? There's so many other things that are a lot more difficult to do.
Yeah, it's the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak, and
It is. Grab it. It's right there.
What about
Um,
sleep? Have you done anything on the sleep regimen or any kind of rituals there?
I'm blessed that sleep is absolutely not my problem. I can sleep standing. Um, I'd like to do about, yeah, it's more a time thing than anything. I try to get my 7 hours in. Not always possible, but yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't be a good person to talk about optimizing that because there's no need.
Yeah. Cool. All right, last tactical question. Any travel hacks that you've learned that you could share that might be useful to the nomadic crowd?
Get Google Fi. It's a fantastic service. So you have to get the Google Fi SIM card, get it shipped. I think it only gets shipped to Canada and the US. I'm not sure if it also gets shipped to Europe. Get yourself a refurbished, if you don't have a Google phone, get yourself a refurbished, very early version of the Google phone that you can put the Fi SIM into, because you need that to set it up. And then once it's set up, you can either keep that phone, use it as a hotspot or as a second phone while you're traveling, which is always good to have anyway. So you don't always take out your best phone. And the other option is to you can then take that SIM and put it in, for example, just an iPhone. Then it works, right? So I did. So I was really happy that I could use it there. What's awesome about Google Fi is that it gives you internet wherever you go. Typically LTE speeds. So far, I think or 4G speeds. I've always had those speeds. And you pay as you go for your data. You literally pay per amount of data. It's $10 per gigabyte. If you don't use half of that, you get half of that back. And it gets capped at $60 a month, but you can use up to 15 gigabytes a month. So if you're a heavy user, you're paying very, very little per gigabyte, and it's just not worth getting local SIM cards.
Yeah. And with WhatsApp, it's like you don't really need voice anymore, I feel like. So it's just data, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's not much of a need for it. We always get local SIM cards anyway, because they are very cheap and we're there for a long time. And we also set up our backups with local SIM cards, right? But yeah, if you were a heavy user of Google Fi, heavy user of data, like at least 15 or around 15 gigabytes a month, it's super worth it. But it's worth it anyway, just to have it. You land, you're in the airport immediately. You have internet, you can do stuff. It's fantastic. It's a no-brainer.
Awesome. Great tip. Great tip. Cool, man. Well, if you're up for it, yeah, we'd love to see the house. For the people listening, you won't see this. But yeah, for the people watching, maybe we should.
Yeah. Cool. Let me see. Right. Let me see if I can show you around a little bit. So you caught us on our second day of clouds in La Paz, because we're in the dry season. Technically now it's all really sunny. Right. Let me see. So that's sort of the main part of the house. There's a little barbecue area over there. Still very early in the morning, so most people aren't out yet. Then you see, like, around here is just a bunch of mountains. And if you look way back there, let me see if I can point at it. That's La Paz over there. So that's about 30 minutes out.
Okay.
Again, it's one of the few places where we're remote. In most places we're right within the middle of the city. Yeah. Let me see if you want. I can just take a quick step inside.
Yeah.
I think people might have breakfast soon here. Just get you through that as quickly. Careful, there will be some morning faces. Right, so yeah, that's breakfast over there.
Hey, breakfast people.
you didn't hear that. Right, up here, and then yeah, just around the rest of the house is there's just 2 floors of it, and yeah, that's about it. So this is where we meet for most of the working sessions and for food and all that stuff. And
Cool.
There's a volleyball court in the back as well. It's on the other side.
Looks amazing. So everyone is under the same roof, it sounds like, in this situation.
Well, there are 3 houses, 3 big houses, but this is the main one, and this is where we where we spend most of our time together.
Cool.
Right, yeah, there's the volleyball pitch there somewhere.
Beautiful view, anyway. Man. Awesome. Well, hey, man, any parting thoughts for someone listening who's thinking, maybe they've not ever done this? Like any words of wisdom or inspirational thoughts for those folks who are thinking about doing this?
Inspirational thoughts. No pressure.
Well, no, could you imagine your life had you not done what you're doing now? I mean, obviously it's been completely life-changing for you, but and I would say for me as well, it's been transformative. I now live in Lisbon and I never would be here otherwise. But yeah. No.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think it's a combination. I would say two things. So one of them is a classic quote of, I think it's Jim Rohn, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So be conscious about, and it's part of lifestyle design really, which is the second part of this. Be conscious about who you're around, and keep experimenting with that. Like you'll figure out who makes you happy, who helps you grow. Yeah, it's also, it's not something that you would just decide now and be like, okay, I'm never going to change that. Keep shifting it. And the other part is just lifestyle, I guess lifestyle design in general. Being conscious about the fact that you can change just about anything, right? Figure out what, not people chase happiness a little bit too much maybe, but yeah, figure out what makes you happy. Figure out what makes you fulfilled. That has something to do with your work. It has something to do with where you are. It has something to do with who you're around. Right. So yeah, everyone can design their lives. And it's a continuum. It's not just like, oh, I do or I do not design it. You can design a little bit of it. You can change a little bit of it. Yeah. So I would highly recommend that. For me, I've realized about a year and a bit ago that, so I grew up changing countries every 2 years or so. When I was about 1, we moved out of Germany. And I realized that I never really fit into Germany, never really fit into Bolivia. So again, I'm German Bolivian. When I was in those social environments, I felt like I wasn't 100% in there. Studied in the UK, never really fit into there. Never really fit into an American crowd either, even though I might sound more American. I realized while doing this that home really is a constellation of people, a certain group of people, certain mindsets, certain values, inspirations, and being around those people has made me feel comfortable, right? So I've found home in something, in this constellation of people. Again, you could take away the locations and the travel part. I would want to keep the community aspect. But yeah, that's different for everyone. Give it a try. Figure things out. Design, experiment.
Love it. Awesome. All right. So how do if someone's listening, they want to do Wi-Fi Tribe, they just go to wifitribe.co, right? And sign up there?
Yeah, exactly. There's a little apply to join part. Exactly.
It's an application. Not everyone gets in, but you can apply at wifitribe.co, right?
Exactly. It's important, just so that it fits for them and it fits for us. Absolutely.
Cool. All right, Diego, thank you so much, man, for taking the time. This has been really great.
Hey, pleasure, Sean.
All right.
Well, we'll be in touch.
Yep. Yeah. Next time you're in Lisbon, hit me up. We definitely got to grab lunch.
I might be soon, so I'll do that.
Perfect.
Take care.
Be well. Okay, that was my conversation with Diego Bejarano of Wi-Fi Tribe. Hope you found it useful. If you'd like to get in touch with Diego, you can leave him a comment under his episode, written comment. You can also leave him a video comment using your webcam. So we are now syndicated. Exciting times. This podcast is now syndicated via most major podcasting platforms, including Apple and Google. So you can get downloadable audio for the latest episodes by subscribing from your favorite platform. Just go to nomadpodcast.com and click on the subscribe link at the top in the header. Or if you'd like, add your email in the footer and be the first person to receive announcements of new video episodes as they come out. If you're considering doing a nomadic travel program, such as Wi-Fi Tribe, you can save up to $300 off select programs simply by applying via our discounts page. You'll find that link in the footer of our site under program discounts, or simply go to nomadpodcast.com/discounts to apply for any of the available programs. Note, if you apply directly to the program, it does invalidate your opportunity to get this discount, so be sure to apply via our form on our site. Nomad Podcast is supported in part by Nomad Prep, an online academy for aspiring digital nomads to help you put your preparation efforts on rails. Get the first 4 days of this 2-week program completely free by going to nomadprep.com/podcast. Nomad Prep, take your job on the road and take on the world. Lastly, I would love to know what topics you would like to see me cover in future episodes and what guests you would like me to have. We do have some more founders coming down the pipe, so I'm excited to introduce you to some of the other folks who have created competing travel programs, just to give you the lay of the land so you know what's out there. And I also am inviting other domain experts. So I see interviewing nomads, founders, and domain experts that can help you, whether you're on the road to be a better nomad now, or if you're an aspiring nomad to actually make the leap and to give you the confidence to do this and make a successful transition. Okay, so for these tips and more, tune into the next episode of the Nomad Podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening. Again, I'm your host, Sean Tierney. It's a big world out there. Get out there and explore it. I'll see you on the road.
Nomad.